Heat shimmered on the MFCD like a heartbeat, green-white silhouettes crawling along a black ribbon of road. The A-10C's engines droned low and steady behind her, a bass note in the night. Through her NVGs, Second Lieutenant Hannah Park saw the tank column exactly where the JTAC said it would be. Trekked hulks, support trucks, one command vehicle trying to hide under a heat-blooming tarp. The desert smelled of hot dust and JP-8 leaking through the vents, and her gloved finger hovered over the weapon select, like it was over a confession. They were closer to the village than the brief had promised. Hannah zoomed the littening pod, slow and deliberate. There, two heat signatures walking along the roadside, too small and too irregular for soldiers. Kids, herdsmen, it didn't matter which. ROE said no. Down in the front seat, Maj Liana Ember Reyes rolled them out to set up the gun run, trusting the rookie in the back to make the call. Radio chatter crackled. The JTAC on the ground was breathing hard, saying the tanks had to die now or his convoy wouldn't make it. Hog 2-1, clear me a lane. Hannah's jaw clenched. If she marked the lead tank with the laser, Reyes would turn the road into orange-white ruin. If she didn't, people on the ground would die. Her thumb shook once, micro-tremor, over the stabilize key. WSO, I need your PID. Silence. Night. Moving heat. No clean answer. Cut to 6 hours earlier. Scene goal. Hannah wants to prove to Maj, Liana Ember Reyes, that she can run the pod and radios on a real night strike. Conflict. Reyes doubts a brand new WSO can keep pace with a moving armor target and a stressed JTAC. Dilemma. If Hannah admits nerves, she may get sidelined. If she hides them, she might make a bad call in the air. Key military detail. 2-seat A-10C test mod with littening pod. ROE requires PID from air or JTAC before firing. Stakes. If Hannah looks green, Reyes will take over the pod, and Hannah loses credibility and future sorties. Turning point. Hannah asks to rehearse the talk-on with the JTAC before takeoff. Emotional consequence. Reyes is cautiously impressed, but warns her combat won't slow down. Outcome and hook. They launch at dusk toward the corridor. The forward strip was a sunburnt smear of concrete at 1600 local, heat still rising off it like invisible waves. Hannah stepped out of the ops building with her helmet tucked against her ribs and saw the warthog waiting. Broad wings, ugly nose, and an extra canopy blister where no A-10C should have had one. The test conversion looked improvised but mean, as if the jet itself had decided to grow another mind. Majiter Liana Reyes was already doing her walk-around, brown hair twisted up tight, checklist in hand. Even from a distance, she radiated the relaxed precision of someone who had seen real fire and returned unimpressed. Hannah quickened her pace. "Ma'am," she said, stopping at parade rest more from habit than necessity. Reyes glanced up. "Park, you good on the pod software update?" "Yes, ma'am, loaded and verified. Links green." Reyes's eyes narrowed, reading more than the words. "This is not a sim. We're going to have a JTAC who's moving and a column that knows darkness is its best friend. I do not have time to teach you in the run." Hannah felt the first flicker of heat in her chest. Defensiveness, shame, hunger to prove herself. She forced her voice steady. "Understood. I'd like to run the talk-on with Viking 2-1 now, before we taxi. Get his landmarks locked." That made Reyes pause. Not what she'd expected from a rookie. "You think he'll have time for you? If he doesn't now, he won't later. Better I hear how he breathes when he's calm." Reyes's mouth curled, not quite a smile. "All right. Get on the spare radio inside, call him. Keep it short." Inside the operations room, the air was cool and smelled of coffee gone bitter. Hana slipped on a headset, keyed the frequency the intel officer had scrawled, and called for Viking 2-1. For a moment, there was only static. Then a low, clipped voice answered. Not panicked. Not yet. Viking 2-1, this is Hog 2-1 backseat 2nd Latinum Park. I'll be handling your sensor end tonight. I need your eyes-on description of the route. Major intersections, civilian clusters, what you consider no fire. A short breath over the radio. You're a backseater? Affirm, 2-seat mod. You talk, I paint. That seemed to settle him. He described the road, a north-south stretch, a bend near a walled compound, a village 2 clicks further. He mentioned truck traffic that wasn't hostile. He mentioned being tired. Hana took notes rapidly, sketching boxes and arrows, visualizing what raw IR would show when the sun dropped. When she stepped back outside, Reyes had finished her checks. Well? He's coherent. He's moving but not under fire yet, Hana reported. He confirmed civilian traffic along the shoulder. We'll need separation before we shoot. Reyes studied her. You told him that? Yes, ma'am. Good. You tell people the truth even when they're in a hurry. Reyes gestured to the ladder. Climb in, Park. Show me you can keep up. The cockpit smelled of avionics and worn Nomex. Hana strapped in, fingers quick on harness and comms, and brought the pod page up on her display. Out front, ground crew pulled chocks. The sun was sliding down, turning the strip gold. In an hour, it would be black glass, perfect for hiding tanks and mistakes. Reyes's voice came over intercom, firm but not unkind. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to get there, and it won't look like the brief. JTAC will be moving. Column will be hugging heat. Command will remind us of ROE right when we need to shoot. In that moment, I need you to give me what you see, not what you wish you saw. Yes, ma'am. If you freeze, I will take it from you. That will be the last time you backseat for me. Hana swallowed. I won't freeze. Good. Hog 2-1, request taxi. The jet lurched forward, heavy but eager, rolling toward the threshold. Hana glanced once at the sun going down over the desert and thought of how IR would turn night into green fire. This was it. No more simulator ethics. No more perfect scenarios. Somewhere out there, a column thought the dark would save them. Somewhere else, a tired JTAC had just trusted a stranger's voice. She intended to be worth that trust. The briefing hadn't been in some polished theater with tiered seats. It was in a canvas-walled room that flapped at the seams whenever the desert wind got bored. A projector threw a washed-out map onto a portable screen, and everyone's shadows kept cutting through it. Reyes's, the intel captain's, Hana's as she leaned over her notebook. The heat hadn't quite bled out of the day yet. Sweat beaded at her hairline. Enemy armor element here, the intel captain said, tapping near a thin north-south line. Tracked and wheeled mix. Estimate 10 to 12 vehicles. They've been moving at night to avoid drones. Same pattern last 2 nights. Hugging this road, staying close to civilian traffic. Reyes folded her arms. Define close. As in, same road, same direction, within a couple vehicle lengths. He grimaced. They know our ROE. Hana wrote it down. Enemy exploiting civilian adjacency. Anticipated. The captain zoomed the map. A small cluster of rectangles appeared. Compound walls, a village a little farther up. This is your problem. Local population moves between here and here after sunset. They ride in pickups, small trucks, sometimes with tarps. Thermal-wise, not hugely different from a light military rig. Our JTAC, Viking 2-1, is escorting a logistics run that needs to get through this zone before O-200. If the armor beats them here, they have to halt. Why not have Viking fix them for us? Reyes asked. He can, but he's moving with the convoy and doesn't have persistent eyes. You do. So that was it. They weren't the hammer dropped on a fixed target. They were the pair that had to make sense of a moving knot of heat in the dark and pull it apart without hitting the wrong threads. Hana raised her hand slightly. Sir, do we have any ISR from last night on individual vehicle signatures? Exhaust placement, engine temperature, anything recurring? The intel officer blinked, surprised the question came from the youngest person in the tent. Not detailed. We know the lead and trail last night ran hotter, probable armor. Civilian vehicles were cooler, more spaced. Hana nodded. So if they repeat the tactic, we can sort on IR by engine temp and interval. Military column will stay tighter because they're protecting themselves. Civilians will be sloppier. Reyes glanced sideways at her. A quick evaluation. You're saying we plan for a sensor sort, not a clean visual? Yes, ma'am. If we plan for clean visual, we'll waste our first pass figuring out that reality is murky. Hana tapped her notebook. If I'm on the pod early, I can tag lead and trail for us only. Then we wait for a gap before we prosecute. That respects ROE and still opens the road. The intel captain didn't look thrilled. Command is very clear about collateral on this route. So are we, Reyes said. But if your report says the enemy is deliberately masking in civies, then a pure no civies nearby condition is unrealistic. We'll create separation. Show of force? The captain asked. Maybe, Reyes allowed. Or just make them accelerate out of their cloak. Tanks don't like being stared at. Hana wrote, create separation. She also underlined the name Viking 2-1. If she knew his voice calm, she'd know it's stressed. The captain flipped to the next slide, where a red circle glowed around the village. This is a no-fire bubble unless you have positive ID and no civilian presence. If the column reaches this, you are to hold and reassess. That's about 2 clicks from the bend, Hana murmured, mostly to herself. Reyes heard it. Which means we need to hit them before the bend. Exactly, Hana said, looking up. If they get past the bend, they have cover, and we're arguing on the radio instead of shooting. The dilemma sat between them like another person. Strike too early and risk hitting someone who just happened to be on the road. Strike too late and the column disappears into roofs and walls and moral fog. Either path carried someone's blood. Reyes broke it. All right. We'll go low, stay on the pod, and build our own picture. My front seat flies the jet. Back seat owns sensors and comms. If JTAC is messy, you clean him up. If ROE gets nervous, you explain what you see in 5 seconds. No lectures. Yes, ma'am, Hana said. As the briefing broke up, chairs scraping, radios being collected, Hana felt that familiar tightness in her chest. The one that said the test was not about systems at all. It was about whether she could say, in real time, this truck lives, this one dies, and convince everyone else of it. She followed Reyes out into the brighter afternoon, the map still ghosting her vision. Reality would be uglier than the slide, and they were still going. By the time they were strapped in and the APU whined up behind them, the sun had collapsed into a band of orange at the horizon. The strip changed character fast, daytime bustle shrinking into purposeful, sharper movements. Light wands bobbed. A fuel truck rumbled away. Beyond the canopy glass, the desert was already turning into one flat, dark plate. Backseat, comms check, Reyes said, hands moving over the front panel. Two good radios, intercom green, pod page up, Hana replied. She blinked once, letting her eyes adjust to the dimmer cockpit lighting. She didn't want to cook her night vision before they even launched. NVG's ready. Copy. Stand by for taxi. Reyes released brakes and eased them forward, only to stop almost immediately. Up ahead, at the intersection of two narrow taxi lanes, a pair of gray aircraft sat nose to nose in an awkward standoff. One of them had a panel open and a crew chief waving. Tower crackled in their headsets. Hog 2-1, hold position. Traffic ahead with maintenance. Reyes's jaw tightened. Hana could see it in the mirror. Every minute here was a minute the column kept moving. Tower, Hog 2-1 is KS for Viking 2-1, time sensitive. Request priority taxi. Hog 2-1, negative, hold position. That was the conflict, clean and stupid. Metal on pavement blocking a mission that might decide whether a convoy got shot up in the dark. Hana looked at the chrono. She did the math automatically. If they sat 5 minutes, climbed, navigated, their first pass would be later than the friendly convoy's ideal window. Ma'am, she said quietly over intercom. Viking said civilians increase around 2,000. If we slip, the road will be dirty. I know, Reyes said. Then, on tower frequency, more formal. Tower, Hog 2-1, be advised target column is exploiting civilian cover. Delay will degrade ROE compliant strike. Request immediate path. There was a pause. Someone up there weighing whether this A-10C really mattered more than a maintenance delay. The idle vibration of the hog ran up through Hana's boots and into her calves. It made her want to move, to get the jet unstuck. While they waited, Hana used the time the only way that made sense. I have route loaded, she said. JTAC says Ben near walled compound is 2 clicks short of village. I'll pull up the pod as soon as we're airborne and start scanning the road. See if they're ahead of where Intel had them. That's what I want, Reyes said. We're not going to get a second chance at surprise. Tower came back, slightly less obstinate. Hog 2-1, cleared to bypass via Alpha 2. Hold short runway 17, expedite. Copy expedites, Reyes said, and the jet rolled again, nose swinging around the stalled aircraft. Ground crew hustled clear, their wands streaking in the dusk like fireflies. Hana's heart kicked. This was happening. As they reached the hold short, Reyes ran through the last checks. Fuel at launch? On profile, enough for ingress, on station, and 1 divert, Hana said, eyes flicking over the gauges. Longer we sit, shorter our loiter. Which is why we're not sitting. Runway lights came up, faint and disciplined. The horizon was almost gone now, the sky dimming into a deep blue that promised to be black in minutes. Perfect for IR. Perfect for mistakes. Hog 2-1, wind 180 at 8, cleared for takeoff. Reyes didn't waste a second. Cleared for takeoff, Hog 2-1. The engines rose to a throaty, insistent roar. The hog surged forward, gathering speed down the narrow strip. Hana's back pressed into the seat. She kept one hand near the sensor controls even now, because the plan was to start building a picture as soon as they had altitude. They lifted, heavy but sure. The runway fell away, lights shrinking. Night swallowed the cockpit, and the world outside became a faint, cool smear. Hana flipped her NVGs down. The landscape bloomed into grainy greens. Gear up, Reyes said. Gear up. They climbed to their transit altitude, angling toward the route that on the map had looked simple and on the ground would be a tangle of heat. On the secondary radio, Hana called, Viking 2-1, this is Hog 2-1 airborne, en route. Give us current on your convoy and enemy column. The reply came back faster than before, breathing harder. Hog 2-1, Viking 2-1, friendly convoy 25 minutes from choke. Enemy column last seen south of Bend, picking up speed. Civvy traffic increasing on shoulder. So they were already borrowing time. Hana met Reyes's eyes in the mirror. We made the right call pushing. We made the only call, Reyes said, leveling out. Now let's see if we can make the right shots. The desert below was no longer a flat plate. Under NVGs it had texture, ridges, and faint tracks, and most importantly, a pale line that was the road. Hana brought the pod online and slewed it toward the route Viking had described. At this range it was still mostly darkness and heat haze. Front seat leveling at transit, Reyes said. Back seat, find me that column. Working? Hana answered. She flipped IR polarity, zoomed in. A faint string of heat signatures appeared, but it was hard to tell if they were the right ones or just civilian trucks doing what civilians did at night, move things. She keyed the JTAC FREC. Viking 2-1, Hog 2-1 on station, single ship, 1 A-10C, sensors up. Say your position and mark if available. Static, then footsteps, then a man's voice that was trying to sound calm while walking fast. Hog 2-1, Viking 2-1, good to hear you. I am moving north with convoy, parallel to MSR, no mark, repeat, no mark, I'm not static. So he was talking and walking and probably looking after people at the same time. That explained the earlier slop. Hana didn't let annoyance color her tone. Copy no mark. I need your eyes on the enemy column. Last visual? South of the Bend. They were moving under civvy traffic. Looked like 4, maybe 5 bigger heat signatures with smaller ones. That was too fuzzy. Viking, say reference. You said the Bend. Do you mean the bend near the walled compound or the bend near the village proper? The walled compound, he replied, breath puffing into the mic. Big square walls, dark roof out by itself. Hana slewed the pod, hunting for a square of cold in the desert. There, 4 right angles, a heat bloom from something like a generator inside. She locked it. Viking, Hog has the compound. From that compound, what direction and distance to last enemy sighting? South. Maybe 1 click. No, less, maybe 800. They were hugging the road. That she could work with. She walked the pod down the road. Slow, disciplined, because if she raced, she'd miss the real signatures. Trucks came and went in her display. Some small, some with tarps, all warm. Then she saw it. A clustered group of brighter, tighter signatures moving with more uniform spacing than the rest. I have a possible column, she said. 4+ vehicles, tight, engine temps higher than nearby traffic. Confirm they're southbound? Affirm southbound. Confirm they are not friendlies. Negative, not friendlies. My friendlies are still south of you. I need those guys stopped before they get to the bend. Reyes cut in on intercom. You happy with that ID? Mostly, Hana said. But there's still some bleed from passing traffic. ROE flashed in her head like a checklist. PID, no shoot on mixed civilian presence. She could have said, we'll roll in anyway. Instead, she made the harder call. Viking Hog, your description is good but not clean. I need one more discriminator. Did your targets have tracked movers, or were they all wheeled? Pause. She could hear him thinking while walking, while maybe checking on his convoy. Lead was tracked. I saw the way it moved over a rut. Perfect. Hana zoomed, watched the front of the group cross a slight depression. One vehicle floated over it with a distinct, smooth articulation. Tracked. Contact. Hog has tracked lead. We have your column. Reyes's tone warmed. Nice work, Park. But Hana wasn't done. Viking, be advised. We also have separate small signatures along the shoulder closer to the village. Those are not with your column. We will not fire through them. You tracking? A sigh of relief, almost. Tracking. I can push them off the road if I have to. Do it, Hana said, sharper than she'd spoken yet. You push them, we get a cleaner lane. She felt Reyes's approval like heat at her back. This was how a crew sounded, not a pilot babysitting a student. Saddle flickered on her display, then dropped, intermittent link, just like Intel warned. That meant she couldn't rely on fancy overlays. She'd have to keep building the map in her head. Hog 2-1, Viking said, breathier now. Those tanks get to that bend. I have nowhere to go. Hana pictured it, his convoy rolling up, only to find armored hulls already using civilian heat to squat on the road. She glanced at the range. Copy, Viking. We have your column fixed. We'll start shaping them away from the village. She clicked back to intercom. We've got them. They're doing exactly what Intel said, using traffic. We'll need to create separation before ROE gives us a green. Then that's what we'll do, Reyes said, banking slightly to set up their first influence pass. You keep that JTAC calm. I'll make them nervous. The road became a river of heat the closer they got. Through Hana's display, it wasn't a romantic desert highway. It was a narrow, glowing vein, pulsing with vehicles of different shapes and intentions. Some moved slow, some jerked, some stayed perfectly spaced. It was in those perfect intervals that she smelled the enemy. Front seat, I'm on the MSR, she said, switching to white hot. IR flipped and the world inverted. Cool desert, hot engines, bright exhaust trails ghosting the night air. She zoomed the pod in 2 clicks, then a third, until motion became more distinct. At that magnification, even small differences mattered. The way armor sat deeper on its suspension. The way tracked movement stayed steadier than a rattling civilian truck. There, she murmured, not keying the mic yet. There you are. The column was riding the southbound lane, exactly where Viking said, but it wasn't isolated. A civilian pickup ran ahead of the lead tank like a sacrificial rabbit. Another 2 civilian trucks ran staggered along the shoulder. Anyone glancing quickly at IR would call it mixed traffic and pass. Anyone trying to bomb it without thinking would hit a farmer first. Reyes saw it on her repeater. They're good, she said. They know we don't like mess. Which is why we stopped playing their game, Hana replied. She keyed the radio. Viking Hog, column confirmed, still under partial civilian cover. We'll build target deck. Recommend you push non-combatants off the road if able. Working it, came the breathless answer. They don't all listen. Of course they didn't. Civilians in the dark didn't understand there was an A-10 staring at them from above, threading morality through weapons. Hana narrowed the field of view, then set a range gate to keep the road segment centered as they moved. The jet wasn't perfectly parallel. Reyes gave her a gentle bank so she could walk the pod along the route without losing the far edge. Back seat, Reyes said. I want lead and trail. If we own those, we own the line. Copy. This was the dilemma moment. She could slap a mark on the whole chunky mass and call it column, fast, easy. But if a civilian truck slid in or out, that big, lazy designation would be worthless or, worse, dangerous. Better to build precision slowly. She watched the frontmost hot shape. It moved with that smooth, tracked grace, nose a little brighter from engine heat, following the contour of the road without the wobble of a civilian suspension. That was her lead. Laser armed for internal, she said. Not for weapons. Roger, internal. Hana breathed out and tapped the designate. A discreet crew-only cue appeared. No bombs dropping, no guns yet. Just a point in space the two of them now agreed on. Lead armor. Owned. She slid the pod back, letting the road flow through her screen until she reached the rear of the military-looking group. The trail was easier. It lagged slightly, probably to keep civilians between it and any ambush. It also ran hotter than the cars behind it. Bigger engine, more mass. Marking trail. Second designate. Now they had bookends. On the JTAC net, Viking was talking to someone on the ground, trying to shoo people away, his voice half command, half plea. Off the road, move your truck. Hana keyed him. Viking Hog, we have lead and trail fixed. If they accelerate, we can track. You focus on clearing your lane. Appreciate it, he said. And this time the gratitude wasn't performance. It was relief that someone above him had actually pulled order out of the heat chaos. Reyes kept them in a lazy circle. Altitude good for a later run. That was clean, Park. It was slower. It was right. Reyes's tone left no room for doubt. We miss ID now. We don't shoot later. Now we know exactly what has to die. Hana watched as a civilian pickup nosed between two of the hot signatures, then veered off when someone on the ground lit it up or shouted. For a second the column stretched. Just a breath. Just a heartbeat of separation. Hana logged the change mentally. They could make that happen again. And bigger. Next pass, Reyes said, reading the same thing. We make them move. Hana kept her eyes on the glowing bookends she had made. The enemy believed night and civilians made them invisible. She had just proved they were wrong. They had the column boxed in their glass, lead and trail marked like bright pins. For a moment, Hana felt ahead of the problem. Then the control voice came on, cool, far away. Not the JTAC wheezing in the dark, but someone sitting in a well-lit room listening to the same traffic on a clean headset. Hog 2-1, this is Hammer Control. Be advised, ROE update in effect for corridor south of village. No engagements authorized with mixed civilian presence inside effects radius. Say current picture. There it was. The part of war that didn't care how good her sensor work was. Hana keyed up. Hammer, Hog 2-1. We have enemy armored column southbound, 2 confirmed bookends, multiple civilian heat signatures intermittently along shoulder and forward of lead. Picture is not clean. Reyes didn't interrupt. She let Hana own it. Hammer came back immediately. Copy, not clean. Stand by for determination. Of course, Reyes murmured on intercom dry. They always call right when we can actually do something. Below, the road kept sliding. The column was not waiting for lawyers or controllers. One of the civilian trucks did, however, peel off. Viking must have reached him. That gave them a brief, tantalizing gap. Hana could have said, "We have separation now." She could have pretended the gap was wide enough to satisfy the rule. But it wasn't, not really. Another small heat source flickered into the lane, oblivious. Hammer's voice came back. Hog 2-1, ROE remains no fire through mixed. If you can create separation, do so. Minimum, 1 clear lane segment between non-combatant and target vehicle. Hana felt her jaw clench. Hammer, be advised, enemy is using civilian adjacency to exploit that ROE. Copy exploitation, Hammer said, tone unchanged. ROE still stands. That was the dilemma, stark and adult. Lie and shoot, or tell the truth and maybe watch friendlies bleed. Her stomach tightened. She glanced at Reyes's mirror. The Major was watching her, not the pod. I'm reporting what I see, Hana said quietly on intercom, as if apologizing. Good, Reyes replied. Because when the tape gets pulled, I don't want to hear my backseater shaded the picture. So Hana keyed the external radio again. Hammer Hog. Current route segment remains mixed. We cannot execute ROE-compliant strike at this moment. Silence on the net for a heartbeat. On the JTAG channel, no silence at all. Hog, Viking 2-1, what's the holdup up there? Column is still moving. Hana switched to him. Viking Air. Higher has no fire with civilians adjacent. We are working separation options. Keep pushing traffic off. That's not fast enough, he shot back. I've got trucks with thin armor and tired drivers. If they get eyes on us. Reyes cut in, her voice level. Viking, Hog front seat. We are not dropping through civilians. You push them, we scare the armor. You want us, you help us. There was a ragged exhale from the JTAC. Not agreement exactly, more like acceptance of reality. Fine, I'll shout louder. Hana let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. The easy road, the one where she'd said clean and let the guns talk, was gone now. All that remained was the harder road. Make the battlefield match the rule. On intercom, Reyes said, You did the professional thing. It cost us time, Hana said. It cost us the wrong time, Reyes corrected. Better to lose 30 seconds here than 30 years of someone asking why we shot through civilians. Now we make them move. Hana looked back at the display. The column was approaching that bend she'd memorized from the briefing. If they reached it, the village's heat signature would swallow them. She imagined arriving 5 minutes later to a glowing maze of roofs, vehicles, and people, unshootable from the air. We need to peel them away from the shoulder, she said, thinking out loud now. If they think they're seen, they might accelerate. If we can spook civilians at the same time. We get your separation, Reyes finished. Exactly. Hana keyed Hammer again. Hammer, Hog. We will attempt to create separation via show of force and maneuver. Advise if any further ROE constraints. Negative further constraints, Hammer said. Maintain visual PID, report when lane is clear. Wilco, Hana said. She muted the external and spoke only to Reyes. They want a clean picture. We're going to give them one. Chapter of my life, Reyes said, rolling the Hog slightly to set up. All right, Park. Let's go scare some tanks. Night flying was supposed to be quiet. Reyes made it loud. Hog 2-1, in from the west for show of force, she called on the net, giving everyone, JTAC, Hammer, any nervous command type, a heads up. No ordnance. Copy, Hog, Viking said. I've got some of them moving, but not all. Stand by to push them harder, Reyes replied. She rolled the A-10C into a descending offset run that would take them parallel to the road, not over it, close enough for engines and wake to be felt. Not so close they'd overfly a civilian truck and scare someone off the pavement. In back, Hana tightened her straps and refused to let the pod drift. If she lost the column now, all of this was theater. The desert rose toward them, NVG green. The road brightened in her display. She could literally see confusion begin. A civilian vehicle slowing, an armored hull maintaining, another vehicle swinging wider. Reyes dropped to the planned altitude, power up, the twin engines howling through the night like a predator annoyed it hadn't eaten yet. The Hog wasn't fast, but down low it was undeniable. Its shadow and noise said, You are seen. Backseat, talk to me, Reyes said, voice steady even as the nose rocked slightly in the turbulent low air. Column reacting, Hana reported, eyes glued to IR. Lead holding lane, trail increasing spacing, civvy pickup moving to shoulder, good, good. Second military vehicle just opened 5 meters. If we can get 10. Hog, this is Viking. Whatever you just did, do it again. The JTAC cut in, a grin audible even through his panting. Traffic is clearing. Reyes didn't do it again. She did the smarter version. She dragged the pass a little farther forward, making sure the lead elements, those that mattered most, felt the pressure. The point wasn't to terrify farmers. It was to tell the armor, you are targeted. Move or die. On Hana's screen, the heat signatures responded with that animal logic all. Vehicles had under threat. They wanted space. The lead tank pulled just a fraction ahead of the civilian truck it had been shadowing. The following armored vehicle didn't immediately fill the gap. Maybe its driver was talking to someone. Maybe he was just startled. Either way, a sliver of clean road appeared like a door opening. Hammer hog, Hana said fast, jumping on the opportunity. We are creating separation. Lead enemy vehicle now has clear lane segment forward, civilian traffic displaced to shoulder. Picture approaching ROE compliant. Copy hog, report when clear. It wasn't clear enough yet. Lower on the road, a stubborn truck still ambled along, oblivious to the threat above. Viking's voice came, raised in the background. He was shouting at someone in person now. Hana heard the cadence of it even if she couldn't make out the words. Come on, move, she whispered, tracking the truck with the pod. Move, move! As if it heard, the truck finally drifted farther right, letting the armored mass breathe. Now the column wasn't a single snake. It was a head, a middle and a tail with gaps between. Reyes eased them back up to a safer altitude. How's it look, Park? We've got bookends and a gap between lead and civilian traffic, Hana said, relief coloring her tone. We can kill the lead without splashing the truck. That's one, Reyes said. Can we open the middle? Hana considered the geometry. If they did another pass, they risked habituating the column. They'd get used to the noise. Better to strike with the gap they had. We've got enough for first shot. If we kill lead, rest bunch up, then we scare again. Agreed. On the ground, Viking came back, breathless but satisfied. Hog, lane looks way better from here. I can push my convoy if you burn the head. Roger, Viking, Hana said. Stand by for engagement. She marked the lead again, quick and clean. The designate glowed on her screen, a promise. This was the payoff from being honest with Hammer, from not lying about the mixed signatures. Now, when she said clear, it would mean something. On intercom, Reyes's voice softened for half a second. Nice work. You made the battlefield match the rule. Hana let herself smile in the dark. Now we make the rule hurt them. Below, the road was no longer an untouchable river of civilians and armor. It was a series of targets, separated, exposed, and finally shootable. The battlefield finally looked like something they could touch. On Hana's screen, the lead vehicle ran alone for the first time, 10, maybe 12 car lengths from the nearest civilian heat. The earlier show of force had done its job. Vikings yelling had done the rest. The column behind was already reacting to a threat it couldn't see, trying to close ranks, but for a few precious seconds, the head was naked. Hammer hog, Hana said, voice clipped but steady. Lead enemy armor now has clear lane segment forward and lateral. ROE compliant shot available. Hog, Hammer, you are cleared to engage lead vehicle. The distant voice answered at once, as if they'd been waiting for her to say exactly that. Viking jumped on. Hog, Viking, burn it now. I have convoy ready to push. Reyes didn't need more encouragement. Back seat, talk me in. Target is lead armor, southbound lane, 2 clicks south of walled compound. Marked internal. You are cleared to fire per hammer. Copy. The hog rolled off its easy orbit into predatory intent. Reyes dipped the nose, lining up the run so that she'd never overfly the shoulder where a stubborn civilian might still be lingering. Night air rushed louder over the canopy. Hana kept the pod locked on the lead, updating range. Laser range 1.2, 1.1, holding. She checked the shoulder again, still clear. Lane still clean. Gun. Armed, Reyes said, almost conversationally. The GAU-8 was a familiar monster, but at night it felt bigger, somehow more final, because you couldn't see the full effect, only the flashes. Hana could feel the anticipation in the airframe, in Reyes's posture. This was what the jet was built to do. Final checks, Hana said, not letting excitement make her sloppy. Target confirmed hostile by movement and spacing. No civilian heat in effects area. JTAC on board. Hammer on board. You are cleared hot. Copy, cleared hot. Reyes steadied the nose, gave it that tiny correction that separated good pilots from great ones, and squeezed. The gun's voice tore through the night. Staccato, heavy, a chainsaw of metal and authority. The jet shuddered, not violently but unmistakably, the way it always did when all that rotary mass spun and spat. Down on Hana's display, the lead armor flared under the impact. White-hot flashes from rounds hitting metal, then a sudden blooming distortion as heat and debris spattered into the lane. No gore, no bodies, just a machine being unmade. Hit! Hana called, eyes moving instantly to the shoulder to make sure nothing had wandered in at the last second. Hit! Good effects on target, lane blocked! On the ground net, Viking whooped like someone who'd just been allowed to breathe. That's it. That's it. Hog, that was perfect. Lead is burning. They're stacking up. Behind the dead lead, the rest of the column did exactly what Hana had predicted in the brief. It hesitated. The second vehicle braked hard to avoid piling into the wreck. A third slewed a little wide. That moment of confusion was everything. Formation turning into traffic jam, predatory spacing turning into vulnerability. Reyes pulled them up on safe escape, wings banking back into the dark. Nice lazy, she said, breath controlled. You gave me a clean throat. You flew it clean, Hana answered, but inside she felt the punch of it. Her mark, her call, her confirmation had become that smoking ruin on the road. Not a training tape, not a graded sim, a real target that would not hurt Vikings people now. She recentered the pod to watch the aftermath. Flames licked from the wreck, IR bright. The column behind was doing what all columns did when decapitated. Some tried to reverse, some tried to pass on the shoulder, some just froze. Perfect. Then she saw them. Small, irregular heat signatures at the far edge of the frame. Too small to be vehicles, too warm to be rocks. Moving in that loose, human way. They weren't in the lane yet, but they were close enough to be a problem if the chaos spread. Front seat, Hana said, tone tightening again. We have dismount-sized heat on the south shoulder, not part of column. Could be locals. Copy, Reyes said immediately. We won't hose the rest until you're happy. On the net, Viking was already pushing. Hog, keep hitting them while they're stuck. Hana exhaled through her nose, mind shifting from exhilaration back to discipline. They had broken the head, made the road hurt. Now came the harder part, killing what needed to be killed without rolling those small, uncertain heat shapes into the blast. Viking, she said, firm. We will re-attack, but we have possible non-combatants in proximity. Hold your push for 10 seconds. Even in his excitement, he heard the steel. 10 seconds. Make 'em count. The road burned, the columns scattered, and Hana, high above, was already sorting humans from targets again. The first kill had lit the road like a flare in IR. Fire spilled out of the lead vehicle, bright and hungry, casting everything around it into harsher contrast. That helped Hana and hurt her at the same time. Edges were clearer, but small things near a big heat source could wash out or look bigger than they were. She zoomed in on the south shoulder. There, 3, maybe 4 small heat spots. Not bunched like a fire team bounding, not moving in that aggressive, forward-leaning way. They were hesitant. One stepped back from the road as if to avoid the chaos. Another turned toward the flame, then away, like someone trying to decide whether to help or flee. "Back seat, what do you have?" Reyes asked, circling for a potential re-attack. "Unidentified human-sized south shoulder just outside effects of the first strike," Hana said. "Movement irregular. Could be locals. Could be dismounts reacting. I can't classify yet." On the net, Viking heard none of her caution, only the opportunity. "Hog, they're stuck. Hit the second one. I can push right now." Hana bit down on the urge to hurry. The column was in disarray, yes, but disarray could mask civilians as much as it could mask combatants. And ROE didn't suddenly vanish because they'd had a good first shot. "Viking Hog," she said, firm. "Hold push. We have unknowns on south shoulder. Say again your last eyes on local traffic?" "Last I saw, they were moving off. Your flyby scared them." He sounded impatient, breathing hard, probably taking advantage of the pause to reposition trucks. "But if you don't kill the second vehicle, it's going to back out." "I understand," Hana said. "Stand by 10. She narrowed the pod's field of view even more, tracking one of the heat spots. It was smaller than a soldier in full kit. The stride length was off, short, uneven, and crucially, it didn't stay oriented on the road the way a dismount trying to maneuver would. It looked like someone trying not to get burned. "Front seat. I assess at least one non-combatant on south shoulder," Hana said on intercom. "Recommend we hold fire on this axis." "Copy your hold," Reyes said immediately. No irritation, no second guessing, just backing her crew. "We can come in from the north, different azimuth." On the ground net, Viking's frustration boiled. "Hog, you're gonna let him back out? He's trying to reverse." Hana flipped the pod to track behind the wreck. Sure enough, one of the following enemy vehicles was trying to angle away from the burning lead, probably to use the shoulder or even the opposite lane. If it escaped now, it might link up with village cover. This was the dilemma made real. Shoot now and maybe kill someone who just happened to be on the road at night, or let a bad guy live a little longer. She chose Viking Hog. Negative re-attack from current heading. We have at least one unknown civilian in proximity. We will reposition and re-attack from cleaner lane. A harsh exhale came over the radio. "You're killing my tempo up here." Reyes cut in, her voice cool. "Viking, Hog front seat. My WSO's call is ROE compliant. You will still get your lane." There was a beat. Then Viking, grudging. "Fine. Make it fast." Hana felt the isolation of the decision settle over her shoulders. This was the part school didn't teach. That sometimes you'd have people on the ground angry at you because you didn't kill fast enough, and you had to wear it anyway. She widened FOV briefly to look for context. The small heat spot on the shoulder had retreated another meter farther from the wreck, moving with that half-panicked, half-curious pace. Definitely not an organized infantry element. The other two signatures were clustered, maybe a couple trying to get away. "Assessment confirmed," Hannah said. "Those are locals. They got caught by the engagement." "Then we don't punish them for it," Reyes said, banking them to set up a better approach. "If they clear farther in the next pass, we take number 2. Hannah keyed Hammer. "Hammer, Hog. Be advised we aborted immediate re-attack due to non-combatant proximity, repositioning for cleaner angle." "Hog, Hammer, Roger. Maintain ROE." Officially approved. That helped a little, but Viking wasn't done. "Hog, I've got a gun truck in my convoy that can engage if that second vehicle pops out." "Negative, Viking," Hannah said, letting a harder edge enter her tone. "Let us shape the target. You roll a gun truck forward in this mess, and you'll be muzzle to muzzle with civilians and burning metal." Silence. Then, more subdued. "Copy. Your show." That was the emotional consequence. She'd won the principle, but she'd also introduced friction. From here on, Viking would be slightly less patient, slightly more suspicious of air. And Hannah would have to keep him with her. She looked back down. The civilians, she was calling them that in her head now, were finally moving away, spooked by the burning wreck and maybe by Viking's people shouting. Good. Give them 20 seconds more, and the battlefield would be clean again. "Once they're clear," Reyes said, "we make the second hit. Then they'll remember this road is closed." Hannah nodded, eyes never leaving the screen. "Once they're clear," she echoed. Below, the human heat slowly peeled away from the fire, proving she'd been right to wait, and making the next argument with Viking inevitable. The fire from the lead kill had settled into a steady, bright blaze. The civilians Hannah had held for were finally peeling back toward the darkness, away from the ruined vehicle. The picture was cleaner, exactly what Hammer had asked for. It should have been a win. It wasn't. Not on the ground. Hog, Viking. 2-1, the JTAC came back, voice tighter now. "I appreciate the concern for the locals, but you need to understand I am out here with trucks that can't take a hit. Every time you say stand by, my guys clench." Hannah could have defaulted to doctrine. "ROE requires it." Hire said no. That would have been true and useless. She needed him with her for at least one more pass. She keyed up. "Viking, Hog back seat. Copy all. That hold prevented you from rolling your convoy into burning debris and screaming people. We do that once so we don't do something worse in 30 seconds. We have a cleaner lane now." There was a pause. She imagined him walking, scanning, one hand on a vehicle, trying to process air logic while also being responsible for human beings he could see and touch. Reyes added, calm and authoritative, "Viking, Hog front seat. Your lane exists because we scared civilians off it, and because my WSO didn't hose through them on impulse. She did that for you." That reframed it. Not, she protected civilians instead of you, but she protected civilians so your drivers didn't have to drive through bodies. Viking exhaled. All right. Lane looks better now. Can you finish the one trying to reverse?" Hannah slewed the pod. The second enemy vehicle had stopped its clumsy reverse. Maybe the driver realized the road behind was blocked. Maybe he was just scared. Either way, with the humans off the shoulder, the shot was much simpler. "Affirm, we can re-attack," Hannah said. "Same ROE. You'll have more room after this." "Then do it." She muted the external to talk to Reyes. "Thanks for backing that." "You were right. Reyes said. But you saw how fast he went. Air doesn't get it. That's how we lose KS fights. You have to speak in what matters to him, convoy safety, not legal language. Yeah, Hana said, watching the screen. He's thinking about what his drivers see, not what I see. Exactly. So tell him how what you saw protects what they see. Simple when Reyes said it. Harder when radios were hot and the road was burning. Hammer chimed in, still clinical. Hog, Hammer, current picture? Hammer, Hog, civilian presence displaced, enemy vehicle 2 in lane, partially halted. We are able to engage on current heading. Cleared to engage. That was all they needed. Reyes rolled them back toward the road, not as low as during the show of force, but with enough authority to make anything down there feel hunted. Hana updated range, double-checked the shoulder, then gave the same clean, short call she'd given before. Target confirmed hostile. No civilian heat in effects area. You are cleared hot. Gun again. Thudding. Final. The second vehicle rocked and then sagged, heat spilling from it like a wounded breath. This time there were no human heat signatures scrambling nearby. This time there would be no argument. Good effects, Hana said. 2 vehicles disabled, column jammed. Viking came back, happier now. That's what I'm talking about, Hog. I can roll through that. Convoy will push behind your burn. Copy, Viking, Hana said, letting a little satisfaction through. We'll stay on station while you move. Reyes settled them into a higher orbit, safer from any panicked counterfire. You see how that worked? Make it about him, Hana said. Not about policy. Right. Policy is for the tape. He wants to get his people home. If your restraint helps that, he'll tolerate your restraint. Hana watched the J-Tax convoy begin to creep into view. Cooler trucks, smaller engines, moving with the wary confidence of people who had just seen proof the sky was on their side. Down there, none of them would ever know that for 20 seconds, a young WSO had argued silently with herself about whether to risk their lives or a stranger's. They would just see a burned road and an open path. She could live with that. Let's stay sharp, Reyes said. The column's not dead, just hurt. Hurt things bite. Hana nodded, eyes back on the glass, ready for the next pass. The second kill had done exactly what they wanted, turned a neat, confident night movement into a stumbling mess of metal. Fire on the road, vehicles braking, some trying to angle away, Vikings convoy starting to nose forward behind the destruction. For a few seconds, Hana allowed herself to think, we've got this. The enemy thought otherwise. Back seat, I've got muzzle flashes, Reyes said, eyes outside. South of the burn. Hana jerked the pod a few degrees and saw it too. Stuttering, bright needles of heat from the field just off the road. Not civilians. Not curious onlookers. Someone down there had finally decided to swat at the thing killing their armor. Hog 2-1, taking ground fire, Reyes called on the net, professional and level. The next second, Hana saw the telltale bloom, hotter, taller, a distinct upward spear of heat tracking the sky. Missile launch, south of MSR, south of MSR, Hana snapped. Probable man pads, 2 o'clock low. Reyes didn't hesitate. Defending. The hog rolled and clawed for altitude at the same time, not graceful but brutally effective. Reyes punched flares, bright white-hot flowers trailing off the jet, painting Hana's NVG view with temporary stars. The missile's heat signature chased, then wobbled, confused by the sudden hotter targets. Hana gripped her console with her free hand, but she didn't drop the pod. She rode the maneuver, letting the image swing wide, then recentered it with practiced, small inputs. Lose the column now, and they'd be blind while the enemy repositioned under the clutter. Missile broke, she reported, breathing harder. Second, firing position near the tree line, possible 8AAA or DSHK. Copy, Reyes said, eyes still scanning. We're not staying down in the weeds with that awake. That was the dilemma, immediate and sharp. Down low, Hana could read the road like a book. Up high, she'd get safety but less fidelity, and the village heat would smear everything. Hana made the call anyway. Recommend we climb to a safer orbit, keep pod on, work from standoff, she said. We can still lasso and sequence. Agreed, Reyes said at once. Altitude is life. They leveled higher, the road shrinking a little on Hana's screen but still there, still burning. Below, whoever had shot at them must have realized they'd missed. Hana saw a couple of men, now clearly military-sized, scatter from the firing point toward what cover the night offered. Viking came back, alarmed. Hog, did they hit you? Negative hit, Reyes said. We're good. You stay under cover while they're shooting. I can't stay forever, he warned. I'm in the open. And we're keeping you that way, Hana said. They shot at us. That means they're not focused on you. We still have the column. She proved it by slewing back to the jammed vehicles. Even from higher up, she could see the pattern. Two destroyed, one angled, another trying to back into the gap. If they let it, the column might reconstitute enough to make a fight of it, maybe even push fire toward Viking. Hammer hog, Hana said, multitasking now, heart still beating fast from the missile call. Be advised, enemy air defenses active along MSR. We are at higher altitude, still maintaining PID and can prosecute. Hog, hammer, Roger, maintain threat awareness. Reyes huffed a small breath, half laugh, half disbelief. Maintain threat awareness, she repeated on intercom. Sure, we'll just tell the missiles to wait. Despite the joke, her hands were steady. She reset for a wider, safer orbit. Hana took advantage of the smoother ride to tighten her picture again. It was harder at this height, but not impossible. She had lead wreck, second wreck, and the writhing midsection all in view. You kept the pod on, Reyes said, noting it. Good. I didn't want to lose them while they were moving, Hana said. Her voice still carried the adrenaline, but it was controlled. If they duck into the village now, we're arguing for the rest of the night. That's what I want to see in a WSO, Reyes said. Not just when it's calm. Below, the air defense position wasn't firing anymore. Maybe spooked by the flares, maybe moving. Either way, they had the breathing room they needed. Hog, Viking, the JTAC said, quieter now. Saw that shot. Thanks for staying. We're not leaving you, Hana said. We're going to crack the rest of this so you can pass. Then let's crack it, Reyes said, banking gently to line them up for the next, more decisive shaping run. They'd taken fire, flared, and climbed, and the picture hadn't fallen apart. Hana realized, in that cooling moment after contact, that she could do this under pressure, that her hands would stay where they needed to stay, even when the sky lit with angry heat. And there was still a road to finish. The road below looked like a half-finished sentence. Two burning wrecks at the front, confused vehicles behind, and then a tightening curve toward the village that promised nothing good. The heat from the fires had started to glow against nearby walls, making the encroaching settlement look closer than it was. Hana checked range. They were running out of distance to play with. Front seat, she said. We need to finish them here. Once they're at the bend, we're done. Agreed, Reyes said. We're going to come in from the cleaner azimuth. You give me targets fast. Hana studied the mess. The enemy, rattled by the first 2 kills and the missile failure, had made predictable human mistakes. One vehicle had tried to nose around the blockage on the outer edge of the lane. Another, farther back, had stopped dead, unsure whether to advance into fire or reverse into whatever was behind it. Those 2, if they died, would turn disorder into gridlock. Targets identified, Hana said. Vehicle attempting to bypass on east side of lane and halted vehicle 3 positions back. If we kill both, they can't snake through. Copy 2 kills, Reyes said. What are we using? At this angle, go gun for the bypassing vehicle. He's exposed. Second target, I can lace for a precision shot if you want it clean. Gun then clean, Reyes confirmed. Call it. Hana keyed hammer without taking her eyes off the pod. Hammer Hog, we have 2 follow-on targets, both hostile, no civilian heat in effects area. Request engagement. Hog, Hammer, cleared to engage. There was no pause this time. Everyone listening understood the window was closing. Viking Hog, Hana added quickly. We are hitting 2 vehicles now. Stand by to push once I call lane. Standing by, he said, urgency coiled under the words. Reyes dipped the nose again, but not as low as the very first run, enough to bring the gun to bear with precision. The jet slid down its attack line. Hana rode the sight picture, watching the bypassing vehicle grow larger in IR, its engine bright, its hull angled in the worst possible way. Side exposed, intent obvious. Target 1, bypassing vehicle, east side of lane, clear, Hana said. You are cleared hot. Cleared hot. The GAU-8 spoke again, harsh and final. Rounds tore into the vehicle as it tried to slip around the wreckage. In IR it flared, stuttered, and then slumped, blocking exactly the path it had tried to use. Perfect. That part of the road was now a wall of burning metal. Target 1 destroyed, Hana said, already slewing the pod back to the halted vehicle farther down the column. Stand by target 2. This one was a little dirtier, closer to the bend, nearer to a reflective surface that might have been a wall or a parked civilian vehicle. Gun here would spray too wide. She flicked to the correct page, set up the laissez. Target 2 is halted enemy vehicle 3 positions back. I have positive ID, lays on. Copy laissez, Reyes said, rolling them into position for the delivery. Hana's thumb was steady now. Earlier in the night, it had trembled over the stabilize key. Now, after making the battlefield match the rule and surviving counterfire, it didn't. She held the laser, watched the coded energy lock where she wanted it. Spot is steady, she said. No civilians in effects. Cleared hot. Cleared hot. Reyes released. On Hana's screen, the second target bloomed, then sagged, heat spilling outward. The narrow road was now a chain of obstacles the enemy couldn't easily untangle. Front killed, bypass killed, mid killed. Any surviving crew would have to dismount and run on foot through an area that Viking could now see and engage. Hammer, Hog, Hana reported, keeping her voice crisp even as relief slid through her. Multiple enemy vehicles disabled. MSR northbound segment approaching passable for friendly convoy. Hog, Hammer, Roger! Maintain Overwatch! Viking's voice came back, triumphant. That's the lane I needed. I'm pushing. Through the pod, Hana watched his cooler convoy begin to flow. Tentative at first, then more confident, threading behind the burning armor. They wouldn't love driving past wrecks, but they could do it. They weren't going to be trapped at the bend, trading fire in the dark. On intercom, Reyes let some genuine pride in. That sequencing was sharp, Park. You didn't waste a second. Your runs were steady, Hana said, but she knew what she had done. Seen the problem as a system and taken out the parts that made it dangerous. Yeah, Reyes said softly. That's what WSOs do. Below, the road still wasn't pretty. Flames, twisted metal, a few straggling heat signatures moving away from the vehicles. But it was usable, and in this kind of night fight, usable was victory. The shooting stopped before the night did. With the decisive pass complete and Vikings' convoy moving, the tempo dropped a notch. Not to peace, never that, but to the lower, watchful rhythm of a battlefield that had been decided and was now just waiting to see if anything else would crawl out of the dark. Hog 2-1, maintain overwatch while convoy passes, Hammer said. Wilco, Reyes answered. She brought them into a wider, safer orbit, high enough to stay out of stray guns, low enough for Hana's pod to still read the road like a report card. Hana started the BDA without being told. She swept the pod slowly north to south, narrating in the steady tone of someone who knew every word was being recorded. BDA, 1 enemy lead vehicle destroyed, burning. 1 bypassing vehicle destroyed, burning. 1 mid-column vehicle destroyed, mobility and likely K-kill. Remaining vehicles, looks like 2, are static and blocked by wreckage. No observed enemy regrouping on the road. She panned farther, toward the south shoulder, where earlier she'd seen those uncertain human heat signatures. Nothing close now, just cooling ground and the smear of people who had run. It validated the hold she'd made. It also made the next thing she saw hurt more. Front seat. I've got a friendly vehicle that took fire, she said, zooming. Convoy asset, light truck. Heat pattern says engine's been hit. It's moving slower than the rest. Viking confirmed it on the net, breath still high from managing the push. Hog. Viking 2-1. Yeah, we had one of ours take some fire when we were getting around your burn. Driver's okay. Vehicle's hurt. We're towing him. Hana's stomach tightened. The timing was too close. The strike, the hold for civilians, the convoy push. They were all within the same thin slice of time. It was easy, far too easy, to draw a line between her caution and someone's truck getting shot. She didn't say anything for a second. Just watched the limping, friendly vehicle, hotter at the front where the damage was, hugging the lane behind healthier trucks. Reyes heard the silence. Don't start blaming yourself yet, she said on intercom. If I hadn't held, we could have killed faster, Hana said. They might not have been in range to get shot. Or you'd have blown through locals and Viking would now be dealing with screaming civilians in the same lane he's trying to move trucks through, Reyes countered. And the tape would show we disregarded ROE, and we'd be doing this conversation in front of a colonel. Hana knew she was right. Knowing didn't erase the knot. She forced herself back into the report. Convoy is continuing to pass wrecks. Route is usable but constricted. Friendly vehicle damaged but mobile with assistance. Hog, that's good BDA, Hammer said. Continue overwatch until convoy clear. Reyes let go of the transmit and spoke softer. This is what you signed up for, Park. You make the best call with the picture you have. Sometimes somebody still gets nicked. That doesn't make your call wrong. It feels wrong, Hana said, eyes on the limping truck. It feels heavy, Reyes corrected. Wrong would have been pretending you didn't see civilians. Wrong would have been lying on the radio. You didn't do either. Below, Viking came back on, calmer now that his column was mostly through. Hog, appreciate the cover. We're almost clear. That hit vehicle will make it. Copy, Viking, Hana said. We have you. He didn't mention her earlier hold. Maybe he'd already refiled it in his head under annoying but professional. Maybe seeing his men drive through without having to weave around panicked locals had made the logic click. Either way, he wasn't angry anymore. That helped. Hana zoomed out for one last look. The road was a dotted line of hot wrecks and cooler friendlies. The enemy column, so confident in the dark, was now a string of dead mistakes. The village ahead glowed faintly, but stayed uninvolved. That, more than anything, proved her restraint had done its job. The fight had not spilled into people's homes. "Convoy clear," Hammer finally said. "Hog 2-1, you may RTB." "RTB," Reyes confirmed, turning them toward the distant smear of lights that was home. The jet felt lighter, even though the weight in Hana's chest didn't. She sat back, letting the pod rest on a wide view for the egress. "Do you ever stop replaying the parts that went sideways?" she asked quietly. "No," Reyes said, just as quietly. "But you get better at filing them. Tonight, filed under saved more than we lost. That's the math." Hana looked once more over her shoulder at the burning road, at the limping friendly, at the absence of civilians in the kill zone. Saved more than we lost. She could carry that. Not happily, not easily, but she could carry it. The desert night had been all movement and heat. The debrief room was still and fluorescent. Hana sat at the end of a scarred table, flight suit unzipped to the chest, hair still carrying a trace of JP8. Reyes sat beside her, posture relaxed but eyes sharp. Across from them, a screen was frozen on an IR frame. The road, the first burning vehicle, the faint ghost of human-sized signatures on the shoulder. The exact moment Hana had said, "Hold." An intel major with tired eyes tapped his pen on a notepad. "So this is where you delayed the re-attack?" "Yes, sir," Hana said. He pointed with the pen. "JTAC was asking for immediate fires." "Yes, sir." "And you did not give him immediate fires?" "No, sir, because there were non-combatant heat signatures inside the effects area." He raised his brows, not hostile yet, just testing. "You were at altitude, at night, in turbulence. You're confident they weren't dismounts?" Hana didn't look at Reyes for help. She kept her gaze on the screen. Confident enough to say they didn't move like dismounts. Stride length was short, orientation was inconsistent, and they withdrew from the engagement area when given time. Enemy dismounts tend to move toward cover with purpose. These lingered, then backed off. The major clicked to the next frame, 30 seconds later. The human heat had indeed pulled away, leaving a cleaner lane. He pursed his lips, conceding the point, but not the argument. "You understand that during those 30 seconds, the convoy took fire?" "Yes, sir," Hana said. "I also understand that if we had fired through those civilians, the convoy would have had to drive through wounded people in a confined lane in the dark. That would have cost them more time and more exposure." Reyes glanced sideways at her with quiet approval. That was the right frame. A different voice came from the speaker on the desk, patched in from wherever Viking had ended up. Grainy, a little echoey, but unmistakable. "This is Viking 2-1. For the record, Hog 2-1's hold was annoying as hell in the moment. But when we drove through, I saw why they did it. Road was messy, but not full of panicked locals. That helped." The intel major looked mildly surprised. "JTAC, you're saying you support the hold?" "I'm saying it didn't hurt me as bad as I thought it would," Viking said. "They kept us from mixing civilians into our lane. I'll take that." That put weight on Hana's side of the scale. Ground guys didn't hand out credit for nothing. A ROE officer in the back, crisp uniform, tablet in hand, cleared her throat. "From a rules perspective, Hog 2-1's actions were compliant. Aircrew identified non-combatant presence, reported it, and attempted to create separation before re-engaging. That's the standard. That's what we brief. The intel major nodded slowly. All right, so tactically messy, legally clean. Reyes spoke up then, her tone mild but firm. And tactically necessary. The enemy was exploiting our ROE. My WSO made the environment match the rule. That's not caution. That's adaptation. Hana felt some of the tightness in her shoulders ease. She hadn't realized how much she'd braced for someone to say she'd cost them the perfect mission. The ROE officer scrolled something, then looked at Hana. Lieutenant Park, I'd like you to write up your sensor-based separation technique. How you identified the column, how you forced gaps, and how you maintained PID after a defensive maneuver. Other crews can use that. You want me to write it up? Hana asked, a little thrown. She'd been prepared to defend, not to teach. Yes, the officer said. What you did is exactly what we expect from a 2-crew KS platform in a mixed environment. We need it in the TTPs. Reyes hid a smile. Promotion from defendant to author. Not bad for a first night. Hana let herself breathe. Yes, ma'am, I can write it. The intel major closed the file. Last point. In future, if you anticipate a hold like that, tell the JTAC in fewer words. He was agitated. Yes, sir, Hana said. I was trying to keep Hammer informed at the same time. Good instinct, he said. Just remember, the guy on the ground needs to hear, I'm doing this to protect you, not ROE. Yes, sir, Hana repeated. She filed it beside Reyes's earlier advice. Same lesson from 2 directions. As the screen went dark, the debrief room felt smaller. The battle that had filled her headset with urgency was reduced to clean sentences and frozen frames, stripped of adrenaline. It was a little disorienting, but it also made the shape of what she'd done clearer. She had seen civilians, said so, and still delivered a lane. That was defensible. Outside, the night over the strip was quiet again. Reyes stood, stretching. You did good, she said in a low voice only Hana could hear. Not perfect, because combat isn't, but good. Hana let that settle. It still cost them a truck. And saved them a village, Reyes said. Write your note, then get some sleep. The flight line was cooler after midnight, all the heat of the day finally bleeding off the concrete. The A-10C sat where the crew chiefs had towed it, engines long silent, canopy open to the dark. Without the thunder and the gun and the urgency, it looked almost gentle, like an animal resting after the hunt. Hana stood beside it with her helmet bag in one hand and the debrief tablet in the other. The tablet held the request from the ROE officer. Document sensor-based separation technique. It was written in clean, detached language. It did not mention the part where a young lieutenant had felt her thumb tremble over a hold call, while a man on the ground begged her to shoot. She tilted her head back and looked at the sky. On nights like this, it was hard to remember that somewhere out there, an enemy column had believed darkness would make it invisible. Up here, the stars were indifferent. Footsteps crunched softly behind her. Reyes. Figured I'd find you out here, the major said, hands in her flight suit pockets. Most folks go straight to the chow tent after a night like that. Hana managed a small smile. I wasn't hungry. Yeah, Reyes said. That happens too. They stood for a moment in companionable silence, looking at the jet. The extra canopy blister caught a faint bit of light from a distant lamp and gleamed, proof of why tonight worked at all. 2 sets of eyes, 2 brains. I keep seeing them, Hana said quietly. The people on the shoulder. I know I was right. I still see them. Good, Reyes said, not missing a beat. Hana blinked. Good? Yeah, because the day you stop seeing them, you'll start shaving the truth on the radio. Reyes turned to face her. Even in low light, her expression was clear, firm, not harsh. We fly for guys like Viking, but we also fly over places where people are just there. If you can see both at once, you're useful. It cost them a truck, Hana said, the last piece she was still turning over. Reyes shrugged one shoulder. And saved them from a much uglier problem in a tighter space. You heard him. He got through. That's the math. You made the battlefield fit the rule. Not everyone can do that and stay human. Hana looked down at the tablet. They want me to write it up, make it a procedure. Then write it while it still stings, Reyes said. Write down what you saw, not some cleaned-up version. Put in that the enemy was exploiting civilian adjacency. Put in that the WSO has to be allowed to call not clean, even when the ground is yelling. If we don't write it that way, some other kid will think she has to ignore what she sees to be aggressive. Hana huffed out a breath that was nearly a laugh. I thought combat was going to be more certain. It never is, Reyes said. What it can be is honest. A breeze moved across the line, carrying the faint smell of fuel and hot metal already cooling. The jet loomed above them, still streaked with the grime of the day. Hana tightened her grip on the tablet. So what do you do with the parts you can't stop replaying? You carry them, Reyes said simply. You don't let them turn you to stone, and you don't let them make you lie. You carry them so next time you recognize the shape faster. Hana let that settle. It wasn't relief exactly. It was more like getting handed the right-sized box for something heavy. You still had to lift it, but now you knew how. All right, she said. I'll write it. Reyes nodded toward the jet. And tomorrow you'll fly again. Because you proved you can do it under fire, not just in the sim. I'd take you on my wing any night after this. That, more than the debrief praise, more than Hammer's approval, landed. Hana felt her throat tighten, but she kept her voice even. Thank you, ma'am. Reyes started back toward the operations building. Get some sleep, Park. The road won't always be this dramatic. Sometimes it's just a truck in the wrong place. Tonight you learned how to see it. Left alone, Hana looked once more at the dark MSR on the tablet's map, at the frozen IR frames the debrief had saved. Then she imagined the same road without the burning armor, without the civilians in the kill zone, with a friendly convoy rolling through to safety. That was the picture she decided to keep. She turned toward the lighted doorway, carrying the tablet and the night with her.